Alright, members, it's 2:30 and we've got a quorum already. So, may I now call the meeting to order. Item 1, information papers issued since the last meeting. Any questions? And also, can we confirm the minutes? We've received a letter from Miss Claudia MO on the regulation of crematoria for animals. But as Ms. Mo is not here in this conference room now, members, what do you think? In fact, at our next regular meeting, we'll discuss, of course, public market stalls, and we'll also discuss the promotion of seed scattering, garden of remembrance, and internet memorial services. So do members agree that we should also discuss the regulation of crematoria for animals at the next meeting? All right. So we will include this item on the agenda as well. Now, Ms. Mo, we were trying to deal with your letter. Next time, we'll discuss 2 issues: business environment of public market stores, as well as promotion of seed scattering, garden of remembrance, and internet memorial service. And we intend to include one more item, and that is the regulation and possible licensing of crematoria for animals. All right? So let's move on to the second item on the agenda, items for discussion at the next meeting. So should we now invite the administration in? So we've already decided that we will discuss the business environment of public market stores, including rental adjustment mechanism, business environment and air conditioning charges, as well as the promotion of seed scattering, garden of remembrance, and internet memorial service next time. So we welcome Mr. Koh, the Secretary for Food and Health, and his team. To save time, I will not introduce the officials to members. Oh, Secretary. According to the Secretariat, with regard to the proposed item 1 for next time, business environment of public market stores, including rental adjustment mechanism, business environment and air conditioning charges, you have said that your paper will only deal with the rental adjustment mechanism, and you will only be listening to the discussion on the business environment. Is that right? Yes. We mainly want to discuss the rental adjustment mechanism with members. Right. So, members, what do you think? The Secretary only wants to discuss with us the rental adjustment mechanism. Mr. Wong Kwok-heng. Now, I think the rental adjustment mechanism is closely related to the business environment in the public markets, and so I think these issues should be dealt with together. And also air conditioning charges. You know, some markets are not viable because of the non-availability of air conditioning. we understand that in some markets, the consent of over 80% of the store lessees is required for air conditioning to be installed. Mr. Tommy Zhang. I understand that the store lessees are very concerned about the rental adjustment mechanism, and so I do not want to see any delay in the discussion of this issue. But even if we have a discussion and the administration drags its feet, there is nothing we can do. But I think we'll discuss rental adjustment next time. And then, Chairman, perhaps you can give us each a few minutes to comment on the business environment and the air conditioning charges. And as the Secretary is here, I don't think he will mind listening to our views on business environment and air conditioning charges as well. Deputy Chairman, I want to know why the Bureau wants to separate rent adjustment from business environment and air conditioning charges. Many lessees are of the view that the rentals or the rental issue has a lot to do with the business environment and air conditioning charges. And if you only want to discuss with us the rental adjustment mechanism next time, then when will we have an opportunity to discuss air conditioning charges and the business environment? Secretary. Chairman, it is not that we do not want to discuss air conditioning charges and business environment. It's natural that when the rental adjustment mechanism is discussed, there will also be comments on the business environment and air conditioning charges. It's just that we do not have any papers for members' reference on the other two issues. And I want to say that concerning air conditioning charges, previously there were occasions when we had discussions, but then we had to have the consent of the lessees before we could proceed further. And so for the time being, there is really no solution with regard to the air conditioning issue. Mr. Vincent Fang. Chairman, the air conditioning charges constitute a substantial portion of the rent, and so if we can only discuss rental adjustment and not air conditioning charges and other factors, then the discussion will become rather meaningless. Chairman, in fact, this issue was discussed many times in the last term. The administration really wants to discuss with us air conditioning, rather rental adjustment, the rental adjustment mechanism. But I think we should discuss air conditioning charges as well. If we had a lot of discussion in the last term, the administration can't just listen and listen. And I think it's a waste of time if we can only discuss the rental adjustment mechanism and not air conditioning charges and other related issues. Ms. Helena Wong, did you raise your hand? No? Now, perhaps I can explain to members why I have proposed to include three subjects in the discussion, namely rental adjustment, business environment, and air conditioning charges. In fact, I have told the Permanent Secretary and the Director of Bureau many times that with regard to the tenancy agreements of public market stores, the rental mechanism, it's very difficult to discuss these in isolation. But of course, as Mr. Tommy Zhang has pointed out, we can't really force the administration to take certain action. In other words, we can't direct you or force you to take a certain course of action. But I want the Secretary and the Permanent Secretary to know that we are really concerned about this whole issue. And the panel's view is that it's rather futile to have a discussion only on the rental adjustment mechanism and not the other two issues. So I will not change the title or the wording in this item, and you have a month to consider your position, and if you need assistance from members in any way, members will be very willing to provide you with the assistance that you need. Mr. Cole? Chairman, the reality is that some markets are air-conditioned while others are not. So we have to separate the discussion on the two types of markets. And I cannot assume that most lessees do not want air conditioning. Now, some lessees may not want air conditioning because of the charges, but if I am to include air conditioning charges in the discussion of the rental adjustment mechanism, then the discussion will not be applicable to markets without air conditioning. All right, so Dr. Cole, I understand that you've noted members' concerns. I hope that you know what we want to do in January, in April, and in July. And I believe you know that we'll be meeting deputations on the rental adjustment mechanism, the business environment, and air conditioning charges in relation to public market stalls. I can tell you that when we met Mr. C.Y. Leung to discuss the upcoming policy address, we told Mr. C.Y. Leung that lifts and escalators were to be provided on slopes along the hillside, and we were of the view that to a large extent the provision of air conditioning in public markets would be comparable to the provision of escalators and lifts on slopes or hillsides. We are concerned about the viability of public markets. Now we know that we know the situation with regard to markets managed by the link, and one way to promote competition is to make public markets managed by the FEHD more competitive. All right. Now the clerk has just reminded me that we have promised to meet deputations and the stakeholders on the business environment of public market stores. So do we want to meet them in January, or should we have a special meeting? Can we have a longer meeting next time? I think an extended meeting will do, Chairman. I think this panel has been concerned about the matter for the past decade. Panel members are very familiar with all the issues, and I believe an extra 30 minutes or an extra hour will be enough for us to meet the deputations. I don't think there is a need to hold a special meeting. All right, so I'll ask the clerk to check whether there will be any clash with other meetings, and for the time being we propose to extend the meeting by 1 hour, and if there is no need, we'll not have a special meeting because I understand that all members are very busy. Right, do members have any further views on the items for the next meeting? No, then we can move on to item 3. Private columbaria, outcome of second round consultation and the way forward. I believe members have already received paper CB 2304, 1213/03 from the administration. And the secretary had also prepared a paper for us. That's paper 04. So perhaps I can invite Dr. Koh to take us through the paper, and then we can have a discussion. Yes, Chairman. Thank you.
Chairman, after the public consultation, the government has looked further into how we will come up with a legislative proposal on the regulation of private columbaria. During the second round of public consultation, it was proposed that we should enact a private columbarium barrier ordinance. During the public consultation, most of the views received were in favor of launching a licensing regime for private columbaria. Of course, there were different views expressed, but the main consensus was that we should regulate private columbaria by way of an ordinance, and that was widely supported. Having collected the views from during the consultation, which are listed in the annex, while the public generally supports the proposal that for regulation, some will worry that regulating private columbaria by way of regulations will add to the cost of the operators. Some suggest that we should respect the private the traditional customs, and that we should not disturb the peace of the deceased. Some also strongly advocated the right of the residents living in the vicinity, and they were against any form of exemption for the so-called existing columbaria. Having considered all these views, we look further into the details. We also had another round of research to find out about the operations of these private columbaria, and based on such information received and our discussion, we are now proposing a framework. After we've heard members' views this time, we will be tabling the bill to LegCo. We want to propose a bill which suggests that we should have a license regime to regulate private columbaria to ensure that they are in compliance with the law, and this would include things like fire safety, building safety, transport, and so on. We want the licensing system to ensure that the private columbaria will be maintained in a sustainable manner, because we're not talking about a short period of time, because these columbaria in theory should operate for a long period of time. So on reasonable level of service and management, we also need to consider the need to protect the interests of consumers. The mechanism that we propose has the following areas, which I would like to highlight. First of all, there should be a licensing scheme and the procedures to be complied with when during the application for a license. And secondly, the proposed exemptions from the licensing scheme. And in the paper, we've also explained why in some circumstances there would be exemptions. First of all, and also the temporary suspension of liability from the license scheme for existing private columbaria is only a transitional arrangement. The bill also proposed other requirements regarding the empowerment to the licensing committee, and also the appeals mechanism, transitional arrangements, penalties, and sanctions, etc. We propose that unless the operator of a private has a license. Otherwise, no one should operate a private columbarium in Hong Kong unless he has obtained an exemption or is granted a temporary suspension of liability. Otherwise, violation of the ordinance will result in a fine and imprisonment. We also require the licensee to satisfy certain conditions. First of all, that they should have the right to use the premises, and that the relevant premises used to operate the private columbarium should satisfy all other relevant legislations, including the town planning ordinance, building safety, environmental hygiene, and so on. And they should not illegally occupy government land. And as far as in respect of the service is concerned, we require the operator to submit to the licensing board a management plan for the columbarium. The licensing board may impose certain additional conditions on the license. For example, setting up of a maintenance fund to ensure long-term sustainability of the columbarium business, ensure the proper handling of human cremains deposited with the columbarium, and also adopting prescribed measures to guard against failure of performance. There should also be an adherence to the management plan submitted as part of the licensing application. And we also require the licensee to enter into formal contracts with the consumers, and the licensee cannot resort to any other means. The following proposals are more controversial. We propose to provide for exemption of three types of columbaria. First of all, the first category that is given the exemption will be first of all, the private columbarium, and secondly, the cremains temporarily stored at the undertaker's funeral parlor, and thirdly, existing columbaria which have not posed any imminent risk in terms of fire safety. This is the most controversial. Before I came in, many people were staging a protest in respect of this issue, and the protesters also wanted us to specify clearly what is meant by existing columbaria. I can't say that at the moment, and I don't think it's appropriate for us to do that now, because we haven't come to a decision yet, and we are prepared to listen to members' views. And secondly, even if we have some ideas, we will not announce them now, because when there are protests, it may result in certain people who will make use of the gray areas, and as a result, and breach the regulations. Very often, when the government wants to launch any measures, it will not stipulate beforehand the details and when it's going to implement those measures. But of course, as a matter of fact, we haven't yet made a decision. And we also like to take this opportunity to listen to members' views. For the third category, that is a long-standing columbaria, well, I think if you look at the history, you'll find that there are many illegal. We have many illegal private columbaria, because in the last decade or two, there has been a shortage of niches in the legitimate private columbaria. As a result, we have these privately operated and illegal private columbaria. Some of these have been in existence for a long time, and we've heard suggestions that we should provide for a grandfather clause to provide exemption for some of these operators. But what about the time limit? And even if we are going to provide for an exemption, we will, because we call this a grandfather provision, and even if we provide for any exemptions, we will restrict that up to a certain date, a certain cut-off date. And again, it's not appropriate for us to announce what that cut-off date is. But certainly we're talking about the past. And I must point out that at this point, for the illegal operators, if they want to do something during the interim, it would be a futile exercise. Our purpose is that when the legislation is enacted, and if there should be a cut-off date, then whatever you do during the interim would be futile. That's our purpose. Regarding the specific criteria, we hope to listen to your views. The regularization of application. In any licensing regime, other than circumstances where we grant exemptions, in fact, some of the existing columbaria which are in breach of the regulations, we can only deal with them in 2 or 3 ways. First of all, we will require all of them to be to suspend their business, and secondly, we can consider providing exemption for some of these operators. But what should the conditions under which we grant exemption? I think we've covered part of that later on. And thirdly, there are some private columbaria which are not in compliance with our rules, but they are eligible to become could be regularized, so that they can put in an application to satisfy our criteria so that they would be granted a license. But all these mechanisms should ensure that for the operators who want to become a legitimate private columbarium, they must satisfy certain conditions, and hence there would need to be a process. Well, at the beginning, I said that we will provide for a temporary suspension of liability. That is, we will now propose certain licensing conditions, and the operator may need some time to comply. So unless you pose any imminent risk, otherwise you may need time to ensure that your columbaria will satisfy the criteria, and therefore during that interim we will consider giving a suspension, a temporary suspension of liability, in order that we can provide information regarding columbarium niches to the public in a systematic manner. Of course, everyone wants our ordinance to be, our bill will be available as soon as possible. We have already started drafting the bill, and in the process we need to listen to your views, and after collecting your views, we will incorporate them into the drafting instruction, but we've already started the task. But I think members understand that the drafting of any piece of legislation takes time, so we're therefore talking about next year. We're talking about the 4th quarter of next year, but if possible we'll try to bring it forward if we could. We want to do it earlier, but we cannot tell you what sort of drafting difficulties we might encounter. So during this interim, we will step up our efforts to ensure that the consumers will get more information. As you know, on the website of the Development Bureau, we would update the information regarding these private columbaria which have not yet been licensed, so that the public will know how to choose. To ensure that all our proposals are feasible, we are conducting a business impact study, assessment study. So when we have proposed the bill, and no matter how much exemption we grant, and after we eliminate some of the illegal operators, there will be some impact. So how serious would that impact be? How can we carry out mitigating measures? Certainly, certain private columbaria will be suspended. And what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with the cremains stored at these illegal columbaria? And we have to come up with some preventive measures to minimize the impact. So I think perhaps I'll pause here and see whether members have any comments on this paper. Other than colleagues from my bureau, colleagues from the other departments will try their best to answer your questions.
而家見到咧已經係好踴躍。
I see many hands already. We've also invited other members of the council to join our meeting today. So I propose that each member be given 5 minutes. Wong Kok Heng, Chen Kao Lok, Raymond Wong, Lee Kok Lun, Priscilla Leung, Tommy Zhang, Chen Si Chun, Zhong Shi Kan, and Wong Pik Wan. 5 minutes each.
Mr. Wong Kok Heng. Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've got 2 questions for Dr. Koh. First of all, para 21 of the paper says that a license for a private columbarium shall be valid for 5 years, subject to renewal. Why is it that it's 5 years and not longer than 5 years? When a licensee sells the niches, consumers who buy the niches have the understanding that the arrangement is permanent, and that's the expectation of the consumers. Consumers will not expect to have to move the remains of their family members elsewhere, say after 5 years. So that's my first question. Why is it that the license will only last for 5 years? And then second, after the legislation has been enacted, there are bound to be applicants who cannot get a license. But what if they've already sold unlawful or illegal niches to certain consumers already? So will there be some reprovisioning arrangements? Now, when the consumers bought the niches, they didn't know that there would be a licensing system, nor did they know that the niches were illegal or unlawful. Dr. Koh, now I hope members understand that 5 years represent a balance. But why is it 5 years? Let me explain. In fact, there are many types of licenses which are valid only for 1 or 2 years. But here we are proposing 5 years. So the intention is that it will be a permanent arrangement. But of course, it doesn't mean that we can simply issue the licenses and then the licenses will be valid forever. So the expiry of the license enables us to take enforcement action, and also the licensee can also make use of the opportunity to take a fresh look at the conditions in the columbarium, the quality of the surface, and whether the facilities need to be upgraded. Of course, we will have regular inspections. It doesn't mean that we'll inspect these only once every 5 years. But then it's also an opportunity for the operator to take a look at the facilities, whether they need to be upgraded, whether the facilities have become too dilapidated. And please note, members, that the period of validity for this type of license is already longer than the validity period for many other types of licenses. Of course, you may think it should be 6 or 7 years instead of 5 years, but we can't issue a license that will be valid forever. And then second, Mr. Wong is correct in pointing out a difficulty, and that is after the legislation comes into being, some columbaria may not be able to fulfill the requirements, and there are bound to be such columbaria, and the number may not be very small. But we do not want to have an arrangement whereby all these all such cremains will be accommodated in public niches, because that would be unfair to the queue for public niches. And also, we don't want to do anything to encourage the establishment of these unlawful columbaria. But it takes time to enact the legislation, and if we promise that we will reprovision all the affected remains, then we may be encouraging the establishment of these unlawful columbaria. So our thinking is that there will be some temporary storage facility for the cremains in columbaria, which cannot be licensed. Mr. Wong Kwok-heng, I know that time's up, Chairman. So concerning applicants now on the list, I think there should be a snapshot. The number of niches should be frozen immediately, because we do not want these applicants to make use of this vacuum to sell the unlawful niches in huge quantities. So you should take a snapshot here. You should not allow these people to make use of this vacuum to deceive consumers. Yes, I think we can follow up later. Mr. Chen Kah-lok, I want to say that the Civic Party and also Ms. Tanya Chan have all along been very concerned. Last week, many people said that there would be, in fact, the government was too lenient to the unlawful columbaria. Not only was the back door open, all the doors and windows are now open, and as a result, we will have these unlawful columbaria springing up everywhere, and not only consumers will be affected, residents nearby will also be adversely affected. But today, concerning the definition, the Secretary is telling us not to talk about what is meant by existing and or what is the cutoff date. So, but still, people get the impression that these existing operators can continue to do their business. They've already got the green light. They can continue to sell their niches. But when they apply, they have already breached the law. So is it that you are going to let them off the hook? Is it that you will regularize all such columbaria? That's the first question. And then second, it is said that you've received 150 submissions from the public. And Now concerning the Kai Fongs living in Tuen Mun, they raised an objection to an unlawful columbarium in Tuen Mun, and in fact they said that in that estate over 1,000 owners wrote to the bureau. Yes, each of the owner was given a form, but then the different owners wrote different things in the form. So why was it that the 1,000 odd submissions were regarded only as one submission? So is it that you are trying to deliberately let these operators off the hook? Concerning long existing private columbaria, whether all of them will be regularized. Now, I can say that some of them do satisfy the conditions to be regularized. So in the legislation, we need to lay down the conditions, and some existing private columbaria do meet the conditions and the requirements for regularization. But are we trying to create an opportunity for these operators to make use of the opportunity to sell their niches in huge quantities? And let me say that we haven't put forward a cut-off date because we haven't made a decision yet. We are willing to listen to public views, and also even though I may already have considered what the cut-off date should be, it's not appropriate for me to say it in public because I haven't listened to your views yet. So it is not that I don't want to have a discussion on what is meant by long existing or what a cut-off date is. There can be discussion, but I need to listen to your views first before I come up with a proposal. And concerning these unscrupulous businessmen or operators, I can tell you that even if they if they want to start doing something unlawful now, that would be futile. What we mean by long existing is, as the word suggests, columbaria that have existed for a very long time. Many unlawful columbaria were established in the past decade or so because of shortage of supply. So by long existing, we really mean long existing columbaria. So I want to say that I cannot speak on behalf of the Statutory Private Columbaria Licensing Board. We are proposing that that board should be a statutory body. I can't say anything on its behalf, but I'm sure the board will come to its own view on a columbarium which made use of the vacuum to sell large numbers of dishes to consumers. Chairman, I think we need to listen to the views of the consumers and the Kai Fongs in the various districts. I think they need to express their views on what is meant by long existing, what the cut-off date should be. I think we really need to heed the views of the residents who, in fact, are suffering on a daily basis because they live near to the columbaria. Now, I think both Mr. Wong and Mr. Chan have asked this question, and this question has not been answered by you, and that is, you keep talking about the operators of these unlawful columbaria, but what about the consumers, the family members of the deceased? They are innocent. Mr. Raymond Wong, I remember in July 2010 and in December 2011 there were 2 rounds of consultation in total, and In fact, concerning the point made by Mr. Kenneth Chan, in fact, there were public hearings and comments were similar comments were repeated. Now, I think that the blame is on the former secretary. He delayed the matter for 8 years, and towards the end of his term, he might feel that he could stay on, and so he started the consultation exercise. Now, in fact, Dr. Kah, I don't know whether you are lucky or not. You only get all the information from the experts in your office, and I don't know whether you are familiar with this subject of columbaria and niches, but I think FEHD officials can tell you that they know the issue very well, and in fact it's a very complex issue. But we want to see a timetable for resolving this problem. I can remember that during the last term in this panel, we repeatedly asked Dr. York Chow for a timetable, but to no avail. And now he has left the administration, and you willing to provide a timetable. The fourth quarter of 2013, that's para 16. So it's good that there is a timetable so that we can give suggestions with the timetable in mind. In the last term in this panel, we were extremely angry. We felt very helpless. We could only shout at him. He didn't give us a timetable. In fact, I myself wrote several papers to him on the subject. And I dare not say that I am reminding you of this, but I can tell you that there are several controversial issues.
The proposed licensing regime or the licensing board to regulate private columbaria, this is all bureaucratic talk. You told us that there would be balanced composition in that board, but you have not given us further information. That is the so-called balanced representation in the membership of the board. Who are the people you like to invite to sit on the board? We all know that private columbaria involves a lot of private interests, and very often the operators are linked to illegal elements, which we all know. So I don't want the appointment of the members to this licensing board is a means to reward the political supporters of the administration. Otherwise, it will be another major political disaster. So I have to remind you this, because when you appoint members to this board, you need to be very cautious. And secondly, in paragraph 20 of the paper, that is both the FEHD and the Secretariat are responsible for enforcement. But whether or not the columbaria complies with the licensing requirements, is it the responsibility of the board? If that's the case, what does the FEHD do? Should there be any complaint from the public? Should they take the complaint to the board or to the FEHD? You need a clear delineation, otherwise there will be a problem. We also earlier, Mr. Wong Koh-hing asked a question about the cut-off date. Mr. Wong, I think you should save some time for the Secretary to respond. So division of labour and also appointment of members. Regarding the appointment of the board members, I agree with you that we must ensure that these members will not have any conflict of interest. That is definite. But the government has, a system for declaration of interest, so we will certainly proceed cautiously. And secondly, the department responsible for enforcement, that is to check whether or not the operators are in compliance, that should be the responsibility of the board. The FEHD will only is the executive arm. That is, if the licensing board would like to find out certain facts or conduct inspections, then the FEHD will help. But the decision to whether or not to issue the license will rest with the board. Chairman, if I may make one supplement. Regarding the membership of the licensing board, you say the government has a system for declaration of interest. I don't think that would help. who are the people behind these potential board members? Apparently, there may not be any conflict of interest, but such a person may actually have connection with the operators of illegal private columbaria. So you need to be very careful. You cannot adopt the traditional method of appointment to members of, for example, the traditional statutory bodies. Dr. Lee Coughlin, followed by Priscilla Leung, Chairman. The paper proposes regulation of private columbaria, and we are pleased to hear that the bill will be coming to us next year, hopefully after a month's time. And after it goes going through the electrical, probably the bill will be enacted in 2014 or 15. There are some, I don't know, private columbaria which claims to be the third category, but they could be illegal, and they are constantly expanding the size of the operations, and as a result, the increasing number of niches. Furthermore, the people living in the vicinity have taken the complaints to us. These residents live in Tai Po. They complain that the private columbaria there are now expanding illegally, and we had held a case conference, but after the conference was concluded, there's nothing we could do. And I understand that the case in Tai Po is one example. Before the bill becomes law, what can the government do to ensure that the interest of the public is protected? That is, to ensure that they would know that the columbarium belongs to Schedule 2 category or is not yet legal. And also for the residents in the living in the vicinity, how can you ensure that when the columbaria are being expanded, it will not cause any nuisance? Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Earlier, some members asked a similar question. You said that we need to take a snapshot of all the existing private columbaria. I mean, legally, we may not be able to do that because there's no legislation in place. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a full picture, because we've collected different information and also complaints. So to some extent, I can say that the department is well aware of what the current situation is and how many such columbaria there are. And we also update the information on the website every quarter, and the website is open to the public. And after our deliberation, we will also step up public education so that the consumers will know about these different types of private columbaria listed on the schedule, which means that they pose different risk. If the consumer chooses to place the cremains at these columbaria, they would have to face certain risk. The third category, which are eligible for exemption, we're not talking about private columbaria which have been built over the last 10 or 20 years. For these so-called illegal or unlicensed operators, if they were to further expand the scale of the operation and sell more niches, it will be a futile exercise. I also like to take this opportunity to send out a strong message to them. On the one hand, it's not true that we don't have a picture of what this problem is. We may not have 100% of the information, but we have a good understanding of what the situation is. So the illegal operators should assume that we don't know what the current situation is. Secretary, I think you should be grateful for giving you the platform to make that statement, but that's not my question. My question is very simple. As the bureau responsible for regulating these columbaria, how can you ensure that the other departments will also say the right thing? Right now, there are such columbaria expanding the operation, causing nuisance to the residents. How can you work with the other bureaus or departments to stop such illegal expansion? And secondly, if you could do that, if you can't do it, do that, what can you do? Because these illegal operators are continue to expand the operations. So you're telling these people they shouldn't do anything legal, but I don't think it really helps. Well, I can certainly respond, and other colleagues can also supplement. All the relevant departments are now working hard to enforce the law. If you breach any parts of regulations, enforcement action are already being taken. The problem is not that our departments are not enforcing the law, but the fact is that we don't have an overall ordinance regulation so that I can take enforcement action in respect of columbarium niches, but rather different departments to enforce, take enforcement action according to different legislation which fall within the portfolio of those departments. I don't know whether other colleagues would like to supplement. We're working very hard to enforce the law. We don't have a law at the moment. That's why you can't enforce the law. We don't have a comprehensive piece of legislation regulating columbaria, but different departments are empowered to take enforcement action pursuant to the different ordinances. I don't think the other departments will rush in to help you answer the question. I think all members of the panel understand your logic. I can assure you that. But I think your confidence is not justified. We think that you are out of touch with reality. Priscilla Leung. Thank you. I'd like to say to the Secretary that on the question regarding, crematorium niches, Hong Kong is a major disaster area. During the last term, the first oral question I asked was how do you differentiate between premises for the living and niches for the deceased? If you live in the proximity of these columbaria niches, it really hurts the residents living nearby psychologically. Many people live in buildings where these premises are used as depository for such urns. I think people can operate a funeral parlor with a size of 500 square feet. So right now there are more columbaria than private tutorial schools. At both the district council and here, I've also made a suggestion. You tell us that the bill will be forthcoming in the fourth quarter of 2013. For the private columbarium, which operate in the vicinity of residential units, and there's a lot of rituals being carried out, causing nuisance. And then 100, 200, niches are accommodated at these premises. And they claim that these are the remains of the relatives. I don't think that you can believe that these urns belong to the relatives. If the operator buys the premises, if they can't do that, then they would incur the loss. I think we've had several litigation in respect of Hong Kong. So I hope you really take a look. Many residents, when they hear that you are proposing to give exemptions, they are really worried. It's like drawing lots. Just in case a columbaria is allowed to operate in the vicinity, they will be in serious trouble. We hope that there will be a breakthrough for this term of LegCo. When you consider the so-called long-established private columbaria, you must consider this. That is, if the nuisance is serious, there will be strong objection from the residents, and the legislative councils from the district and the district councils must have received many complaints. I hope you will really take on board our view, comments. Don't look at it from a professional perspective. I think the residents living in the vicinity of these columbaria would have the most to say. During the last term, you suggested that you proposed an 18-month temporary exemption. I said that you must make reference of the Lehman Brothers incident. In that incident, many consumers, while they have been warned, but the warning was not very clear, and these people still bought those, spent a lot of money to buy those toxic financial products. For Chinese people, once you have a group of victims created because of the law is not clear, that would be serious. If you provide for a temporary exemption for liability, and after the exemption expires and the urns will need to be relocated, then the relatives of the deceased will be seriously affected. For some of the victims, the impact will be even worse than those of the Lehman Brothers fiasco. I hope the Secretary will consider the policy and the legislation. You must definitely, in the long term, look for proper sites. Do not regularize these private columbaria in residential areas as far as possible. Secretary, you have 1 minute. Regarding impact on residential developments, that is certainly one of the most important considerations. Another member also said earlier that it's not that we are satisfied with the present situation. We are not very satisfied. Well, that's better. Well, we don't have any legislation at the moment. So unless we have, good cause, for example, the operative has breached the fire safety ordinance or the building ordinance. Otherwise, without the support of a piece of ordinance, I cannot, charge in and take action. Of course, there are many administrative measures being carried out at the moment, especially in Hong Kong. We have regulations regarding the hours of operation and that they're not allowed to burn incense and so on in order to minimize the nuisance. There's a long list. There's many administrative measures that we can adopt to ensure that the existing unlawful private columbarium will ensure that the nuisance it causes will be minimized. I don't want to get in the way of the other members, but I don't agree that you don't have any law to enforce. Ms. Tommy Zhang, thank you. Perhaps I'll take a few seconds to talk about item number 6, electronic filing.
In fact, I've written a letter on this, and I want to say that I support the e-applications for licenses. I really cannot complain because it's going to be launched. I hope that the administration can step up publicity and education for the industry. I myself will be organizing some seminars and talks for those in the industry. Now back to the private columbaria. Now, I have no objection to a license being valid for 5 years. But then, in future, can the operators sell the niches to the consumers or users for life, or is it that the niches can only be sold for a 5-year period, and the consumers will have to pay again or buy again once every 5 years? Because how can the operator sell the niches for permanently to the consumers if they don't have a license? And then concerning the study, I understand that the study has already started. I mean, the business impact assessment study. Previously, there was a business impact assessment study carried out by the efficiency unit, and that was really a well done study. So I don't mind you're coming back only in the 4th quarter of 2013, but please do the assessment well and properly, and if you can minimize any undesirable impact on those concerned, then the bill will meet with less objection. So if you can do your consultation thoroughly, if you can do the assessment properly, then you will meet with less objection, and that would mean that the bill can be passed earlier. I think what is important is that when the bill comes to LegCo, we can deal with it very efficiently and expeditiously. Dr. Koh. Now, I don't think there is any license that we can issue on a permanent basis. The licensee has to progress with the times. The licensee has to make sure that the service and the facilities are kept up to standard. And the licensee can only operate in self-owned premises. So in fact, we do intend the license to be permanent, but of course, the operator has to state very clearly in the service agreement with the consumers the validity period of the license, and the consumers should be informed that if there is no breach of the legislative provisions, then the license can be renewed. So does it mean that they are buying
buy the premises.
So, but then can the operator buy the premises, and then after he has obtained the license, sell the premises? Now, but that would be in breach of the conditions. I think what is important is that the operator should keep the consumers informed of the validity period of the license. Now, say for example, the restaurant license of a restaurant may expire this year, but then the tenancy may be for a longer period of time. So is it that the EU will be doing the business impact assessment study? We've hired a consultancy firm to carry out the study, but can you still ask the EU to follow up on the study? Now, I have a lot of confidence in the EU, so please also get the input from the EU in the study. But then may I refer to 22A? So please clarify this point. The premises need not be self-owned. It would suffice if there is a tenancy lasting for at least 5 years. But this paragraph relates to or applies to existing ones. I was talking about the new ones. Mr. Chen Chi-chun. Now, I want to say that LegCo has received complaints and cases in many districts, including Tai Po. Now, say for example, a columbarium was established in at a location outside the DPA, and so no enforcement action could be taken, and the operator keeps applying, and so consumers are led to think that the application will be dealt with and approved at a later date. And in fact, at the case conference, the departments were only able to explain to the complainants what they could not do, instead of what they could do. Only the buildings department was able to do something about that columbarium, and there was a fine of a few tens of thousands of dollars, and that was less than the price of one niche. But they are still applying for an expansion of the columbarium, and they are now having new consumers, and you know, if you do not license this columbarium, then maybe tens of thousands of consumers will protest, because they will have nowhere to store the remains of their ancestors. And then, now say for example, say there is a temple, and the founder monk was buried there. The remains were there a long time ago, but then they started to sell the niches only 2 or 3 years ago. So what do you mean as long existing? 2 decades, 3 decades? But how do you calculate the date of birth, so to speak? And then, It is said that if anyone breaches the conditions of the license, then the license may be suspended. But what do you mean by suspension? Does it mean that it can no longer sell niches to new customers, or is it that the cremains cannot be stored on the premises during that period of suspension? Now, concerning grandfathering, or exemption, we need to consider the history, how long, not the number of niches. That's not a factor when you take into account. We understand that in the past 10 years, there were a lot of niches available in the market because of the shortage of supply. So it doesn't mean that we'll grandfather or exempt those columbaria with a lot of niches because we are afraid of objections or public pressure. And we do have a plan to provide some transitional or interim arrangements whereby the affected cremains can be stored on a temporary basis. But we're not talking about provision of permanent storage space, because we do not want this to be an incentive for creating a fait accompli. And then concerning what is meant by long existing, I would also like to listen to your views, members. We haven't decided the definition of long existing, and I think I want to listen to your views. But of course, we'll have a definition in the law, no doubt. We're willing to consider member suggestions. So for those columbaria in Schedule 2, is it that you have their dates of birth already? I think after we have got the statutory powers, we will be able to formally do the verification work. We do have some information, but I can't assure that the information is accurate, because at the moment there is no legislation, and so the columbaria are not duty bound to cooperate fully with us and to provide us with all the accurate information. What is meant by suspension of license then? Suspension. Permanent secretary. You mean exemption? Exemption from liability. I'm talking about para 7. You talk about suspension or cancellation of license. Breach of licensing conditions might lead to suspension or cancellation of license. What is meant by suspension of license? Now we issue the license in a particular year, and if there are serious breaches of licensing conditions, the most severe penalty is cancellation of license. But then another form of penalty may be suspension of license. In other words, operation during a certain period of time will not be allowed. But then as to whether suspension will be included as one form of penalty in the future legislation, we're open-minded. We want to listen to your views. Yes, I understand Mr. Chan's concern. What is meant by suspension? There is a technical difficulty. Does it mean that the family members will have to collect all the cremains during that suspension period? So say if it's a suspension of 3 years, where can the cremains be stored? So I think a practical solution would be to disallow the sale of niches during the suspension period. Yes, Chairman. Mr. Zhou Shikan. Members have referred to complaints made by those living near columbaria. I can understand their concerns. But then do you know that there are columbaria in non-residential areas? Last year, I heard that a big group wanted to convert its warehouse in Taiwan into a luxury type columbarium. And I heard that over 10,000 niches would be provided, and subsequently I was told that 10,000 niches would not be able to help the operator recover the cost, so at least 50 to 60,000. And so if we have say 30,000, 40,000 public niches, that would mean over 100,000. Now, if you can resolve the traffic problem, then I have no objection to having these niches in Taiwan. But if you allow one private operator to provide 50 or 60,000 of 60,000 niches, then have you assessed the traffic impact and the impact on the residents? Secretary. No, I don't think this is really my greatest concern. Now, both at present and in the future, TIAs are very important. And if you go to the town planning board to apply for a change of land use, you have to satisfy the town planning board that the traffic impact can be resolved. Now, even if we want to provide public niches, one major hurdle for us is that we have to pass the TIA. And I'm sure the TIAs will also feature prominently in the future legislation. Now, for a columbarium near to residential development, I think we are only talking about 1,000 to 2,000 niches. But what about tens of thousands of niches in a non-residential area? And I think we need to set very strict criteria for the TIAs and the EIAs. Yes, I understand. And in fact, even for government columbaria, we also have to impose certain restrictions. Now, say if we want to provide a public columbarium with over 100,000 niches, we have to consider the difficulties. All the family members go to worship their ancestors during the 1 or 2 weeks before or after the two festivals. So we can imagine the chaos, the crowdedness. So maybe we have to set some restrictions concerning the worshipping time. For example, for some, they can only go to worship their ancestors at Qingming festivals, or some only Chungnyeong festival. And you know that at certain existing public columbaria, the burning of paper offerings is not allowed. So we have to impose certain restrictions. I understand that there is this custom, but then we still have to impose restrictions.
Chairman, I think we have to respect religious freedom. So you have to think more carefully, Mr. Secretary. Well, this is really a difficult issue. I think alternative burial services, I think you should try to promote those more aggressively, such as scattering and so on. You really have to educate the public and promote these alternative methods. In the next 20 or 30 years, we would have passed away, and we need at least niches for 3 million people. Well, Chairman, I agree. That's why earlier I've already publicly stated that I myself will not wish to be, have my own cremain stored in an urn. But the question is that if I change the custom, there's nothing we can do. We have to do both. But this is not on the agenda today. There will be another occasion in future where we'll come to explain you how we're going to change people's customs. But during this interim, when customs have not yet changed, we have to increase supply, and those restrictions certainly have been considered. Ms. Helena Wong, followed by Claudia MO. Chairman, the Democratic Party has been, the members of the Democratic Party who have been following on this issue have not been returned this term, but there are still many district councillors who are equally concerned. I have several questions for the Secretary. We have always been in favor of burial of remains in publicly operated columbaria, and I support the licensing proposal. But we are worried about the conclusions in your paper. We are not in favor of granting permanent exemptions. Here you propose that there will be exemptions for 3 categories of crematorium. First of all, the private cemeteries managed by the Chinese Cemetery Committee, and for the second and third category, we are very much against providing permanent exemptions. For You said that for the undertakers of burials, you say that there are already an ordinance to govern that. And secondly, you say that the cremains stored at those premises are only stored there temporarily. Chairman and the Secretary, you would know that some members already mentioned Hong Hom. In Hong Hom, there are 61 operators with licenses to operate burial parlors. 80% of all those undertakers operate in Hong Kong. Those with yellow dot means they are licensed. Those with a red dot means that they are unlicensed. So if you're going to grant exemptions in future, then in Hong Kong, which is a disaster area, I think the problem in that district will never ever be resolved. So how are you going to deal with these licensed or unlicensed undertakers? For these licensed undertakers, they operate in the midst of residential developments, and the cremains are stored at those premises. While you say you only give them a temporary exemption, but then sometimes temporary could become permanent because there is a shortage of niches. And so if you grant such exemptions, that the nuisance caused to residents will never be mitigated. In 11C, you say you only provide two guidelines for those operators who will not be exempted. That is, those who are in breach of fire safety and building ordinances. If they are imminent fire risks or building dangerous building safety, then you will not grant exemptions. But what about nuisance to the vicinity, hygienic problems caused by the operator? Shouldn't these be the conditions to determine whether or not they should be granted exemption? It is strange that in your paper you appear to provide a balanced picture, but you are very much inclined towards the interests of the trade, so that as a result we have a proliferation of all these illegal private columbaria, and you grant them exemptions. But as far as public opinion is concerned, very often you will put it at the end of your paper and you say that you've also had some contrary views. So I'm worried whether in the course of the public consultation the government was no longer objective, because you've not taken serious consideration of the nuisance caused to the residents in the vicinity. Mr. Secretary, first of all, I'd like to point out that for the human cremains which are stored temporarily, there must be a mechanism to govern that. For legitimate burial parlors, sometimes the cremains will need to be stored there until a date has been set for the burial. So there must be provision for temporary storage. Regarding the undertakers, I think if anyone who applied for a new license, they will not be allowed to do that, except that in the past we didn't have such a regulation, and that's why those who have been granted license previously can do what you've described. But for those burial parlors which have been granted new licenses, they are no longer allowed to store the remains there. Regarding impact on the residential development, that certainly is a factor we would consider. I'd like to clarify that we will not be inclined in favor of any particular party. We take seriously the nuisance caused to the residents in the vicinity. What we're going to eliminate will be such illegal operators, because over the last 10 or 20 years, these illegal operators have operated all these illegal crematoria in order to make a profit, and these are the operators that we want to tackle. But they still have so many customers now, and that is the issue that you need to be concerned about, Secretary. Claudia MO. Thank you. We are most concerned about the provision for exemption. Other than the third type of exemption, that is those which don't pose any fire safety or building safety risk. In 26C, you stipulate clearly that comply with any management and or mitigating measures to be imposed. We don't know what the management will be like in the future, whether it's the users or those already in the trade would be very concerned. So the first question I'd like to ask is this. Mr. Tung Shi Kan already protested strongly that in the industrial area in Taiwan, someone is planning to operate a columbaria. If this is not allowed even in an industrial area, and you agree that nuisance is caused if the operator operates in the residential area, so what exactly is your overall position? And secondly, you talk about the long-existing crematorium operators which will enjoy exemption. When I think of long-existing, I think we should be talking about the 1950s, the time even before I was born. The general impression that the cut-off date you would adopt would be 1997. Sometime or the last 3 years, 3 years before the millennium. So do you have a broad direction as to how you define long existing crematoria? Because there's a big difference in our understanding. There's no need to discuss this further. And also, if you make a press release today or tomorrow. I have many friends who have the cremains of the ancestors stored in Hong Ham. I don't know whether they were stored in legal or illegal crematorium. And these people are very worried because they don't know whether or not these columbaria will be eliminated in the future. They know what to do. You say that there will be transitional arrangements, and but then these people are in panic. Although the columbarium trade seems to be a nuisance trade, but it is a trade that actually pays tribute or respect to our ancestors. And you are now treating it like a consumer behavior. So between now and next year, when the bill is tabled to this council, what can the consumers do? The administration like to broadcast APIs. So at least you should promote this through your APIs and remind the consumers that if you want to buy these niches, what do they need to pay attention to? The government actually placed advertisements even in newspapers for the development of the Northeast NT and the old age allowance scheme. You are adopting a very aggressive promotion campaign. But I think the question of columbarium is a matter of grave concern for many families because the population is aging. But now the government say we don't know. We haven't decided yet. Let's have a discussion. Then people will be even more worried between now and next year. Secretary, I think, Ms. Mo, you asked two questions. Regarding promotion of publicity, we have actually done that. In our APIs, we've also reminded the public to be wary of the illegal operators. Yes, we may need to step up the promotion or publicity. I think the whole problem boils down to a dilemma we face by long existing columbaria. We're talking about those which have been in existence for more than 10 years. So this is quite close to what you were suggesting. If you put it this way, this will lead us to your second point. That is, some people who have placed the remains of the ancestors there would be in panic. So we say there will be a transitional arrangement. But I cannot, treat this transitional arrangement as a long-standing arrangement. So we are faced with three problems. But what I can tell you is that we have the greatest determination to resolve this problem. We will try our best to minimize the exemption to the third category, and that would mean more illegal operators will be eliminated, and then people who have placed the human remains there would need would need to relocate the remains of ancestors somewhere else, but we're going to provide for a temporary relocation arrangement. But in the long term, we're going to rely on publicity, and if publicity is not good enough, we will step up further to remind the consumers not to patronize those illegal operators. But if there's no niches available, then the only thing we can do is exactly what we will talk about on the next agenda item: increase the supply. To do that, again, we encounter other difficulties, and that will take us to the third issue that we need to think about. That will be changing our customs and well, I can only say that we can't satisfy everybody. The fact that I'm sitting here, I'm prepared to be criticized, but our whole team is determined to do something. We will strike our best to do our best to strike a balance, but no matter how what happens, there will still be some people who will not be satisfied. It's now the Deputy Chairman's term. Well, I would like to allow more time for the Secretary to respond. First of all, I'd like to respond, to clarify one point. Ms. Young said that there are some people who don't have 100 relatives. I'm one of those. My mother was called Sister Nine, and she had many relatives. Coming back to my question, Dr. Koh said that there will be a temporary arrangement for the relocation of niches removed from illegitimate columbaria. Secondly, the operator would need to have self-owned premises, and the license will be valid for 5 years. But during the interim, can they conduct business? And if they do, how should they deal with the contract? Will it result in many litigations? I don't want another incident similar to the Lehman Brothers incident. I think the problem is rather complicated, but to put it simply, you would need a license before you can continue to sell niches or sign a contract with a customer to provide the service. Once the bill becomes law, then I would have the power to freeze all these operators, and only operators who are licensed will be able to provide the service. But the customer has already bought the niche. You've frozen the license, but the consumer has already bought. I'm talking about the new contract. For those which are already in existence, there are three possibilities. First of all, the crematorium will be eliminated, and secondly, we'll grant them an exemption, and thirdly, we'll give them a deadline or a cut-off date where they will enjoy a temporary suspension of liability if there are certain shortfalls, if they fail to satisfy the requirements of the buildings ordinance, and they can come up with some remedies, and we'll allow them time to do that. But during that period, they should not be able to sign any new contracts. They will have to wait until they qualify to be licensed. All right?
So I've bought the premises, and then I apply for a license. Then can I sell the license as well as the premises? Now, we do not intend the license to be transferable. In other words, an operator cannot just transfer or sell the license to another party. If another party wants to have a license, he has to make an application. All right, I'll now make use of my 5-minute period to ask some questions. Now, Secretary, we understand that you have all the determination in the world to resolve this matter, but I believe you understand that members are concerned. Mr. Chen Chi-chun asked whether operators providing a lot of niches can in fact exert pressure on the administration to take a certain course of action, given the large number of niches that they are providing and a large number of people are affected. And then can you advance the entire exercise? Is that possible? And then second, you said that at the moment no enforcement action could be taken because of the absence of legislation. But I think there are various ways for you to intervene. For example, the Lands Department can enforce the lease conditions in the NT because a lot of the columbaria are on land in the NT. And then can the Home Affairs Department assist OCs in Hong Ham to enforce the terms in the DMCs to deal with the existing columbaria. So in fact there are a lot of ways that you can intervene. If you are unwilling to consider such options, then can I ask you whether you are afraid of these existing columbarium operators who are local tyrants, and you dare not antagonize them? And you've referred to 22A, and we can understand why you are saying that existing columbaria will be able to operate in premises with a tenancy lasting for at least 5 years. But then, what if they want to continue operation? In future, will you stipulate that under the licensing regime for an existing operator operating on rented premises, if he wants to apply for a license, he must possess self-owned premises? Chairman, thank you. I've mentioned the fourth quarter of 2013, but of course we'll try our best to advance that date as far as possible. And then second, enforcement. I have never said that we can't take any enforcement action. What I'm trying to say is that we do not have a piece of legislation specifically targeting columbaria on which I can rely to take enforcement action. At the moment, we can only rely on different provisions scattered in different pieces of legislation. For example, buildings, fire services. And I can also consider whether there are other pieces of legislation that we can make use of to intervene. At the moment, we can only rely on legislation on land, on fire services, on buildings. And during the transitional period, if the columbarium is free of problems, then we should not require the operator to have to operate on self-owned premises, because he may not be able to find suitable premises. So maybe the compromise is to have old rules applying old rules applying to existing operators, and new rules applying to future operators or new applicants. I want to say something about your reply to my second question. And what was that? You said you agreed that you should try to take enforcement action on various fronts. But then the public get the impression that the government is not taking serious action against these unlawful columbaria. So can you carry out one or two large-scale operations, and can that be a high-profile operation so that people will change their impression? I can only say that I'll try my best. I also want the public to believe that we are serious about this. We are serious about resolving this problem. Now, because this meeting has to adjourn by 4:30. So is it that members do not have any comments on the other two items? But I have some questions concerning public columbaria. If that's the case, I will not allow Ms. Helena Wong to ask questions in the second round. The next item is e-applications. No, Chairman. Oh, sorry. Public columbaria. Next item, public columbaria. Secretary, do you need to take us through the paper? I think I'll just leave more time for members to ask questions. Mr. Wong Kwok Heng, then Mr. Chan Kah-lok, 5 minutes. Yes, now it's time to ask questions about the public columbaria. Now, of course, I support the paper. I want the administration to provide more such niches as quickly as possible. Now, there will be 200,000 niches to be provided at Sandy Ridge. Can you double the number? Can you ask the consultant to come up with a design that can accommodate double the number? It's difficult to find a suitable site. The District Council hasn't raised any objection, and Sandy Ridge is also quite remote, far away from the urban area, so it's really an exceptionally suitable site for a columbarium. So can you provide more niches on the site? That's the first question. Second, recently I've heard that when members of the public queue up to buy niches, public niches, they discover that the rule of the game has changed. It's not first come, first served. Even if it's their turn, they still have to have lots drawn. I can remember I went to Hopewell Center to queue up for a niche for my father, and when it was my turn, I could buy the niche. But now the new rule is that even when it's my turn, I have to take part in lot drawing. Secretary. Chairman, thank you. Our preliminary plan is to provide 200,000 at Sandy Ridge. In fact, I, like Mr. Wong, want to provide more niches there, but I dare not promise that we can double the number. And I want to say that our greatest obstacle is the traffic problem. In fact, I've been there myself. I understand that a hill has to be removed, a valley has to be filled, and that's why the project takes so long. So we have to closely monitor the traffic impact and the demand, and then we'll see how many niches or how many additional niches we can provide. I cannot promise you that the number will be doubled, but we do plan to provide additional niches on top of the 200,000. And then concerning the second question relating to the administrative arrangements, I'll ask the FEHD to reply. Chairman, thank you. The FEHD has not changed its procedures with regard to the selling of niches. For new niches, the priority is decided by lot drawing on the computer. But then for niches surrendered by members of the public, reused niches, then members of the public can queue up, and these niches will be provided, and those whose turn is up can come to choose the niche that they want. And concerning the 40,000 niches at Q-Town Road, computer lot drawing took place in November, and I understand that members of the public are choosing the niches they want in accordance with the sequence decided by lot drawing. Yes, I welcome the FEHD's reply. So that for new niches, allocation is based on lot drawing. I mean the sequencing of or the priority of choosing niches. Now, Mr. Wong, for new niches, there is lot drawing. Now let me say this: for new niches, they are allocated under the lot drawing arrangement. But queuing up is for niches surrendered by members of the public. But thank you, Chairman, because I heard it wrong. But what if it's my turn and then and I have to take part in lot drawing and I get a very low priority and I can't get a niche? But that's the arrangement. But that won't do. Chairman, do you know people have to wait for years for their turn, and so it should be first come first served. Does it mean that if it's my turn and I get a very low priority in the lot drawing exercise, I have to go back to the end of the queue and queue up again? Now let me clarify, Chairman, this has all along been the arrangement. The rule of the game has not been changed. I can bear witness to that. In the year 2004, I had the experience. I had 2 rounds of experience, and so there was lot drawing. And then if you didn't want the niche, you could have another chance of drawing lots. But what if I failed? I did not succeed in lot drawing. Then I'm sorry, because the supply is simply not enough, and that's why we are telling you in this paper that we have supply falling short of demand. Supply cannot catch up with demand. And also, we have a backlog of needs or demands that are not met and satisfied. And in the past decade, because of the acute shortage of supply, some operators who were only concerned about making profits and making money quickly constructed unlawful columbaria. This is the fact. So if you queue up now, then who should be at the front of the queue? Those who died yesterday, those who died a decade ago. We have people who died 10 years ago. Their remains are now in unlawful columbaria. And who should get priority? Those who died 10 years ago or those who died 2 years ago?
We never had a queuing system, so we've not changed the system. Chairman, well, I think this is really a major change, and it's not like what the Secretary said. I didn't hear the Director quite clearly just now. Chairman, I have personal experience helping queuing up for a niche on behalf of my father. I actually went to Hong Center. I actually queue up for a long time. I think only that is fair. If you queue up and then when it's your turn, you still have to take part in the drawing of lots. You may as well, use the computer to make a random, drawing of lots. Well, Chairman, if that's the reality, then I think we need to discuss this again. Secretary, I believe Mr. Wong. Mr. Wong, let's clarify the facts first of all, before we can continue have a basis for our discussion. Your understanding is that originally we have a first come first served basis and people will queue up. We've now changed that to a system whereby we rely on drawing of lots. The FEXG told you that for some of the niches which have been surrendered, then people will wait for the turn. Mr. Wong said that according to understanding, in the past you will submit an application form and you will join the queue, and it's first come first served basis, and when a new niche is available, the person at the front of the queue will get it. Chairman, the secretary talk about that people can queue up on a first come first served basis for niches which have already been surrendered. No, that's not the case. When I applied for a niche for my father, it was in respect of a new crematorium. I'd like to supplement that the one at the Hong the columbaria was operated by the Chinese Permanent Secretary's Management Board. The FEXG doesn't have a cemetery there. Mr. Wong, you're not convinced. You say that they should adopt the method you prefer, even for the columbaria that they manage. It's now the next in turn is Mr. Chen Kai-law. I think as chairman I have the right to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. Are we all in agreement? So we'll start with Mr. Kenneth Chen. Chairman, during the first part of our meeting, we talked about how we can regulate or even eliminate illegal private columbarium. But that's only one side of the coin. The other side would be the public niches. An important question that the director has to face. In your paper, you say that by 2016, you only be able to provide 120 new niches, and your conclusion is that it's not enough. So therefore, you need to look at it from a broader perspective and adopt a longer, time perspective. Could you approach the population policy committee, because this has to do with the issue of aging population and so on. If the public wants the government to provide sufficient supply of public niches, and while at the same time we can persuade people to change their habits or customs, never mind, you can adopt a multi-pronged approach. In order that we can satisfy, we can actually move in tandem with the future demographic changes. I don't think we should be, locked up in arguments like that. With a proper plan, I'm sure many of the problems could be resolved if we could send out a clear message to the market that the emphasis will be on public niches. And so I think it's very difficult for you to educate the consumers. You can't be the salesman. They would describe an illegal niche as if it were legal. They will even say, for companies which operate private columbarium, even try to seek listing on the stock exchange. So, Secretary, please talk to the Secretary of Administration, try to work out what the demand is, and then plan accordingly. I hope the Bureau will send out a clear message to the public, that is, what is leading the market. Under the circumstances, we can go back to Mr. Wong's question, whether or not the current system of drawing of lots is better than, the system where people have to queue up. It's like public housing. People will know, when how long they have to wait if they are on the queue. Chairman, I believe that our strategy now is very clear. Mr. Chen, you talk about demand. We are well aware of the number of people who will pass away every year. I won't say that you want to discuss it at that level, but I think the facts are very clear. We have about 40,000 people passing away every year. So under the circumstances, we know that that will be the amount per annum. Furthermore, over the previous period of time, over the last decade or so, we had a backlog of unsatisfied demand. if I plan for the provision of several 100,000 niches, it would confirm that the market is led by public niches. But that doesn't mean we will eliminate the private operators. There's a question of choice here. I understand what the demand is. And we all know that, we also know about the backlog of unsatisfied demand accumulated over the years. The policy that the market should be led by public niches, I agree with that. And this paper tries to explain how, given all these constraints, we will try our best to increase the maximum number of public niches possible, while at the same time we will have an ordinance to regulate those private columbaria which cannot be regularized, while leaving room for regular private columbarium, although smaller in scale. I might have not explained myself clearly earlier, but I think my philosophy is very clear, and I've also explained all the difficulties that we face and what difficulty gave rise to which problem. So since this meeting of this panel has caught the attention of the public, I'd like to take this opportunity to spell out our policy clearly. That is, in the long term, we aim to increase the supply of public niches, and this is a major part of our work. We're talking about several 100,000 niches in the pipeline. Changing our customs is also something that we aim to do. We don't know how effective that will be, but we have to make a start at first. Thirdly, regularization of private columbarium, and to eliminate those which are not up to standard. So these are the strategies that we're working on. Queuing time. I've already said, I think the queue system is good. But if we started doing this 10, 20 years ago, the situation might have been better. But if we implement such a system now, first of all, I still have this backlog of unsatisfied demand accumulated over more than 10 years, and then you ask people the relatives of for those applicants who have to join the queue now, but then we don't know how long they have to wait further. The question is, which method is fair to whom? We're not talking about coming with a method that is absolutely fair. I agree that if we had a queuing system, the queuing system we implemented 10 odd years ago, it would be the most fair. But at this point, I must agree that under the current circumstances, I have no other option. And that's why we're trying our best to increase the supply of new public niches. And before we're able to satisfy total demand, the fairest method is the drawing of lots. Helena Wong, followed by Chen Chi-chin, Secretary. I hope you will have the impression that we are putting pressure on you. In fact, we have great expectations of you. We want to encourage you to do a better job, and we believe that you have the sincerity to do so. Regarding the supply of public niches, you said that every year about 40,000 people pass away per annum. According to my information, it's 50,000. So 40,000 people who pass away would need to have their remains put into niches. So the total demand for public niches is 3,800, discounting those placed in private columbarium. From 2012 to 2016, you will be able to provide 120,000 new public niches. That would be, so in about 3 or 4 years, in about 4 years' time, you'll be able to eliminate to make up for the shortfall. I'm worried that with this sort of progress and timetable, you'll not be able to catch up with the demand. While you're able to catch up with the demand to be generated in the next few years, well, what about the backlog of acute unsatisfied demand and the cremains which are stored in Hong Ham and the illegal columbaria? You're not able to deal with that. So I hope you therefore talk to the administration and try to find more sites. I hope the government give us, a supply timetable, giving us detailed information as to how. In fact, there are many people who are on the queue, and it's not been allocated these niches. So, how do you plan to do that? And also, as to how we can relieve this problem, we suggest that the government should reconsider how you plan the land use for government cemeteries. That is earth burial and cremation. Could we adjust that ratio? There are fewer and fewer earth burials now. You could, for example, turn those graves into columbarium. Also, could you come up with policies and measures to encourage the relatives of their ancestors to surrender the niches so that people can on the queue can draw lots in order that they could be allocated with such urns. We could also provide for some permanent niches, but for others we should set a time limit, say 60 years, after which even the descendants will have passed away. So we could provide for certain permanent niches and other niches which are time limited, given a price concession, so that you have the incentive for people to surrender them a few decades later. That can help increase supply. I also hope the government will consider whether you can set up a committee so that the people of the community, electrical members, district councillors, stakeholders living in the disaster areas can work together to monitor the land supply, your implementation timetable, whether people will be given urns by drawing lots or so on, and so that we can effectively, work together. Secretary, I fully agree that there is a shortage. This is exactly the problem that we are now facing. You said that we're not able to come up with a clear-cut timetable. I think as far as our internal timetable is concerned, I can give you that. But now we need involvement by the public. It's not only as simple as our ability to find a site. For each site, we need to consult the relevant district council several times. We have to respond to the questions raised by the district councillors before we can move forward. So I therefore am not able to control the time required to do that. Furthermore, we know that a certain amount of demand has been accumulated every year. I think you're right in quoting the figure of 50,000. By 2020, the total number of people passing away per annum would exceed 50,000. Right now, it's more than 40,000. So in our plan, we're talking about mega-scale planning, where possible. I'll be talking about figures to the tune of 100,000 or 200,000. But only one or two districts have the prerequisites for us to do that. For reuse of burial sites, and I think we are working on that. Since we are short of niches, I don't think we should provide new grounds for earth burials. So we will therefore not be planning provision for any sites for earth burials. And where possible, we will also take back sites for earth burial which are time limited. But there is a question. If you resume these sites here and there, it doesn't help unless we can recover the entire site. But anyway, this is already incorporated into our long-term plan.
Mr.
Chen Chi-chun, yes, Chairman. I would like to take this opportunity to discuss with the Secretary ways to increase the supply of niches. Mr. Wong asked whether the number of niches provided at Sandy Ridge can be doubled from 200,000 to 400,000. The Secretary said that traffic was the main problem. But then I think we can look at the land dimension. In fact, some said that we could partition one niche into 2 or into 4. But then I could said that we have to suit the size of the urn. But then, in fact, it doesn't mean that we have to get back 1 liter of the cremains in volume. Say, what if we can only have 200 ml instead of 1 liter? And if we have smaller urns, if we have less cremains, then it would mean smaller urns, and then we can have niches of smaller sizes. Yes, I've also explored this possibility, but then I have been told that despite the fact that we have very advanced and modern cremators, still a lot of cremains remain. But then does it mean that we should only collect part of the remains and not all the cremains? But then if we double the size, the number of niches, then the problem is again traffic. Can technology reduce the volume of the cremains, and so as a result we can have smaller urns and then smaller niches? But then if we have more niches, smaller ones, then we have to consider the traffic problem. Now, of course, you can explore options like the basement level or columbaria with more floors. Now, if most people can accept in fact, we only need the symbolic symbolic value of the cremains. But you know, in fact, after cremation, a lot of the cremains, in fact, consist of the ashes from the burnt coffin, right? Mr. Wong Heng, as we have another item on the agenda, I'll only give you 2 minutes. I don't need 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Concerning public columbaria, public niches, and how they are allocated, I really want the administration to give this panel a paper for discussion. The 16 arrangement is lot drawing, so it's like by Mark 6 tickets. Right? We've been given a verbal reply by the administration, and can we ask the Secretary to reduce the verbal reply into writing? And according to the Secretary, because of the backlog, drawing lots is the best way available. So can you give an explanation in writing? So you want a supplementary paper? Yes. All right, thank you. So now, can I ask members whether they support the submission of this paper on the public columbaria to PWSC and FC? All right, no objection. Thank you. The last item on the agenda then, electronic submission of applications relating to food business, trade licenses and permits. Secretary, do you need to introduce the paper to us? No? Oh, sorry. The Secretary is not responsible for discussing this item with us. Do members have any questions or comments on this paper? Before he left, Mr. Tommy Cheung said that he supported the paper, but he wanted the administration to publicize the new surface widely so that the industry would understand the procedures and the arrangements. So can I ask the administration how it's going to publicize the arrangements? Thank you. In fact, we've already briefed the industry on the scheme. And before we formally launch the new service in January next year, we can allow interested users to try using the system now so that they can familiarize themselves with the arrangements. Mr. Wong Kwok Heng, I want to say that I support the new service. But I hope that at least during the initial period, the existing system will continue to be provided in parallel. Is it that the two systems will exist in parallel? Yes. So in other words, applications can be lodged by mail in paper form. It's just that we want to offer one additional choice to the industry. So we just hope that the administration can set up publicity. All right. Do members have any other views? No? Then we support this paper. We want the administration to publicize the scheme, and we hope that more people can benefit from this a new service. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.